I am proud and indeed greatly honoured to have the opportunity on behalf of the Labour Party to propose this important motion seeking improvements, very basic improvements on behalf of family carers in the Dáil here this evening. Indeed, it is well known that I have had a long-term career in advocacy for and on behalf of the carers, 25 years or more. So my interest is not just new-founded, it's something that's long and well established. In 2015, the Central Statistics Office found that 1 in 10 people are providing care to someone with an illness or disability. And on that basis, there are about 355,000 people in the population are carers. So today, just roughly 1 in 10 people in Ireland are carers. And this will be 1 in 5 by 2030 when you're ageing demographic. But in fact, this number, 355,000, could be 375,000 based on the latest Central Statistics population targets there out a few months ago. And for every one of those people, there's a different story. And the stories we heard at the family carers events across Ireland were heartrending, and would move anybody. They're very familiar stories. Any of us that have been involved with the caring movement knows exactly what they're about. People looking after their elderly parents, or an elderly uncle or aunt, or people looking after a child with disability. I spoke to a woman from out Dunleary, Rathdown area this evening. She'd move you, a 28-year-old child, and the work that woman is doing. And we're now, she went back to work, and now she go back into carers allowance, and the job she has to try and get carers allowance, Minister. You know, you treat people. Look, I don't want to say about it, but there are less well-known stories too. People working full-time and then acting as a carer around the clock for a spouse at home due to illness or disability, and children under the age of 18 taking on significant care responsibilities for their parents. We know there are tens of thousands of children and teenagers. Indeed, your colleague Deputy Staunton was a great advocate on this. From as young as 10 years old in providing care. Many people estimate that there's 25,000. I believe that's a gross underestimate. There's now talk of about 56,000 young people providing care across Ireland. People are affected by disabilities or this illness. They want to stay in their own homes. That's their most comfortable environment. And 200 odd euros of a carer's allowance would assist in that, along with obviously adequate respite care and home help. And there's strong evidence that the quality of life has improved and that there's live longer in the home environment. So an immediate and achievable priority is to increase substantially the number of hours, home care packages and home help hours, or alternatively to establish the entitlement to secure same on a statutory framework. And I know, Minister, I want to acknowledge your efforts in that regard, and they're positive. Carers don't want our sympathy or our pity, nor do they want to be put on a pedestal or canonised. They're just ordinary people who are struggling to care for their loved ones without the support they so desperately need and deserve. Carers are people who have chosen to look after their loved ones, and they do need help, practical help. And most important of all, what they often need is an acknowledgement of their role, which is very often disregarded. That is what the state should be doing. That's where the state should intervene, and that's what the state has to do better than it currently is doing. They need respite. They need training. Some need a downstairs bathroom at a critical time. Others need home help hours when they need it, and not when the system, and by hell that system can be a very difficult system, decides to give it, if indeed they ever get it. So it's no wonder they're at breaking point. Some just burn out and feel exhausted. Therefore, first and foremost, carers need financial support. Only 1 in 5 carers receive carers allowance or carers benefit. And it's the only payment in the social welfare system that I know of where you have to work full-time to get 16 euros more than you get if you're sat at home and rest in your hands. It's so invidious. It's a means test, and the rules of the means test have not changed since 2008, despite the rising cost of living, which means that people are being unfairly left without support in terms of incomes. Yeah, there was a big and cherished goal of mine, and indeed the Labour Party, has been our policy to try and abolish the means test, and I authored that in the Caring for the Carers report of 2003. And our goal should be to abolish the means test. But in the interim, Minister, and I know we have to face reality with Brexit and everything else, I want to deal with reality. We should substantially increase the income disregards and the capital disregard. And why would you do that? When you get disability allowance, there's a capital disregard of €50,000. When you get carers allowance, there's a capital disregard of €20,000. What's so different about carers? It's actually invidious. It's discriminatory.
So let's, Minister, this is not your area, but bring this story back, which is a collective decision of government. That's the simplest thing I could do today. And I got another one just before we come in. You know, what can be done quickly? A special fund can be established tomorrow, in addition to home care packages, for onset conditions. For example, strokes, which require initial huge input in terms of hours, but are of finite duration. People get better and cure. But some people are of the view that if they receive large-scale input of hours, they're robbing other people. So a special fund should be set up for that exception situation or an exigent situation. And, you know, so, you know, that's the thing. So bring that up. And I think it's a commitment made in the programme for government to review the disregards and the means, but nothing has been done. And abolishing the means test, according to your own figures, I got this last week, last Thursday, will cost 1.2 billion. I know the money isn't there, but long term, it will be money well spent. The return on it will be absolutely phenomenal. And Mr. Watt and Pascal's crowd will be delighted with themselves in the return on investment. And they're the people that seem to count. Because allows the only means test of welfare payment as tax. How is that fair? This payment should be made exempt from income tax in line with other means testing payments, because taxing it or making it subject to a tax is in effect adding insult to injury. You're taking 40% or more off the top. Sure, it's madness. There are other supports that the state provides. People who are caring day out need respite. And this is a big issue. Those people are caring full-time and only have a break when their own siblings or children step in to take over for a few days, and that puts strain on the wider family. Look at this from another perspective. There are plenty of people who work full-time and who use up their holidays to provide relief care for their siblings or parents. And this is just one example of how care work affects the lives of so many people in the family. Some struggling, trying to earn a few bob to pay mortgages and everything else. It's a huge demand. The state can and should be doing much more to provide respite, and even for the sake of the physical and mental health of carers. We need to address in a holistic way the issue of training. Many carers are involved by themselves, lifting their loved ones manually, on their own, in and out of beds. And I know as a barrister, if you're doing a similar type of work, you'd be breaching the safety and health and welfare of work 2007 regulations, and you'd be committing a breach, and you'd be liable to be sued. So those people, they need help. We do need to revise or update the old mobility allowance and motorised transport grant. That's going on. It's going on since 2013. And as I say down in Ballincarriga, long churning makes bad butter. So the butter must be rancid at this stage. It's taken so long. And we need to increase funding for the housing adaptation grant. I see you say you have increased it, but more and more we need it, because there's more appliances, more mobility aids, more equipment needed for people. And that's essential for, you know, for every euro we spend in carers, we're getting a huge return. And the Carers Association, Family Carers and Carers Alliance, they say that we're saving the state 10 billion. And the cost of all these income supports and schemes is, you know, is far, far lower. If carers were to down tools, and I've said this so often, and require the state to step in with nursing homes and staff, the whole system will collapse overnight. But carers are not asking for the state to do everything. They know that the resources limited. I was speaking to a lady this evening, and she knew that. They're doing most of the work without complaint. But they do need the rest of society to appreciate and acknowledge that. And acknowledge and appreciate the social value of their work, and ensure that there's adequate support to allow them to keep going. It is minuscule when you examine carefully and objectively what we're getting in return. And that brings me to a crucial point. Many carers are badly stretched. Carers are suffering from serious health issues themselves, including mental health issues like depression and anxiety. And that's the human cost of being constantly available, constantly on call to support someone who needs their care and whom to give that care with unbridled love. And this is why the Labour Party thinks that those in receipt of the care support grant should also receive a GP visit card. Somebody asked me on the radio the other day, why should that be? You know, because it's not, and it's one that you probably raised yourself in the motion. But why not? Because they're not getting it because of the means test. They're getting the care support grant, but they're not getting the carers allowance. So there's only a few, there's 28,000, I think it is, roughly. There's 100,000, take away 80-odd, you have 28,000. Given them, it could be, it recognises the impact that this is having upon their health. And those are small changes that have just said, the disregard straight away in the budget. This one here, the GP for the carers who are non-receipt of carers allowance.
You know, because carers are suffering from serious health issues, as it says, including mental health issues like depression and anxiety. And so that's why we need to deal with that. There's a big question mark. You know, we need to encourage carers to look after their own health, and it makes sense to remove any cost barriers that might prevent people going to a doctor to look after themselves. And there's a big question over the future sustainability of the whole system as constructed. People are working very hard, and as hard as they can, to look after their loved ones, but the stress and strain is intolerable in many cases. And carers feel genuinely at this point in crisis. We need much more detailed scrutiny and debate about the future of caring. We do need a new national care strategy, but I see you're moving to a social care model strategy. Look, as long as it's adequately resourced, everything is fine. But I don't believe in strategies that are put up that should have 4 legs, and there's only a leg and a half put under them. Because if you don't have the other 2.5 legs, the whole system collapses, and that's what's going to happen. And the strategy needs to take account of a number of home truths. Our population is ageing, which means more people than ever before will be involved in care. And as it says, 1 in 5 people will be involved by 2030. Families have fewer children, which means that care duties will be shared out among fewer people in the family circle. And Minister, you know that. Conditions like dementia are on the rise, which means the more challenging care situations will be common in future years. We have to take the issue of carers much more seriously than we do to date. And the government has to open its eyes to the reality of carers' lives and the pressure they're under. And I just hope the Labour Party's motion tonight makes a contribution to that in a non-partisan, all-embracing way. I see Sinn Féin amendment, I see some very positive points in that amendment. We have no issue with that. This is something that we all have to get behind, and it's not in a partisan way. And if we do so, we certainly. And Minister, you know, and I made this point before, and you're aware of it. Just to give you one example of the means test. At a meeting in Mullingar, a lady got up in the middle of the audience. And I spoke about the means test, and spoke very passionately about it. Because I think you waste a lot of money with administration, and try to get through to them, and then go put through the thing. And unless there's 5 severes put on your application form, you're refused straight away. I know that. I'm 30 years dealing with this. I've done more appeals, I say, on carers allowance than anyone in this country. And I know exactly. And the point about this is, at the end of the day, this woman come home to look after a married woman, a couple of grown-up people in England. Deputy Murphy will vouch for this. He's Cahirock. This is not a lie. This is the bland truth. And lo and behold, she applied to look after 2 elderly parents, one with dementia and Alzheimer's, whatever. In their 80s, 90s, I think, one of them. The first thing our beloved state bureaucrats decided to do was get us a value for your house in England. How dare they? How dare they? Looking after an elderly mother and father. And that's the first thing they thought about. Minister, that should be snapped out of the system. That woman left her own family in England to come back to look after her parents. And the first thing we had to do, we gave it off of people, including 6 uncles of my own, a one-way ticket in the 50s on the cattle boat at Dunleary. So I know a bit about this. And here with someone coming back to look after their parents, the most precious thing they could do. And the first thing the Irish state done was finger in the eye. Tell us how much your thing is. And then don't tell me a house in England could be worth 400,000 sterling. Belong to the family. And take out your 20,000 disregards, and the carers allowance was disallowed. The woman then had to get in help, and she went back to work to get carers benefit. And by hell, that took a stretch. It takes you weeks on top of weeks on top of weeks for something that should be received in 10 days. I'm sick and tired of this thing. I'm at this thing since 1997. 22 years. If I'd love to see one thing is that we'd recognise in a proper way the work that carers are doing. €219. Average contribution to fair deal scheme if you're working at yourself, €824. Hospital bed and acute care, €6,000. Do the maths. A fool. If you got NG in your leaving cert, you could prove that this is the most cost-effective and efficient and decent way of helping people. So let's salute the carers of Ireland. We have got them on the cheap. We have exploited them. Naked exploitation. We're an absolute disgrace as a country. And I don't mind paying extra tax to make sure that they get their lot. But I come from a side of the House who believes that taxation needs to be risen to provide services for people. Because someday I'll probably be in that position myself, but I hope somebody, if they need, will get the carer's allowance to look after me. That's the way I think. Not everyone might think that, but the one thing the Labour Party always taught us in that way, providing for the wider public, not for ourselves. We left that with Thatcher, with me. We always thought of the we. So I would commend this motion.